Hi, this is Huw for Tone Twins TV, and in this video we're going to be featuring a Flying V. Some of you might remember a few years back that I did a project for Guitarist Magazine where I converted Joe Bonamassa Epiphone Flying V signature model into something more kind of vintage correct, more like a 58, although it was a hell of a good starting point, I must admit. It was a great guitar. I actually did that project for Ed, and he still loves it, and he's still playing it regularly and loves the sound of it. It's a really good guitar. I kind of swore at the time I was never going to do another Epiphone because they're a nightmare to strip and refinish, but I got talked into it, and his one I prepared earlier, as I used to say on Blue Peter, I've kind of come into this halfway through the project. So basically I've stripped this guitar and I've already finished it in nitrocellulose lacquer, and after months and months and months of work and heartache, I have to admit that it looks pretty much identical now to the way it looked before I even started. But you can't relic Epiphone poly. It's even harder to relic than it is to strip it, but I can certainly relic this nitrocellulose. So combination of finished relicing and also installing some vintage correct parts, upgrading the pickups, upgrading the hardware and electronics, and doing some relicing on the plastics as well. So hopefully you'll learn a lot from it, and it's a really affordable model. It's light as a feather and it rings like a bell, so I've got a feeling this one's going to sound absolutely great. So we should probably start by having a chat about stripping Epiphone finishes. I didn't show you that, so I didn't go into great detail on it because I've already done a similar video on stripping a Joe Bonamassa Epiphone Firebird, and just talks you through the process. So basically it's really quite difficult to do because it's a two-layer thing. The top layer, which is kind of the colour layer or the gloss layer, responds to quite a lot of heat, and it kind of peels away quite easily. The problem bit is the undercoat, which is on really thick, and it actually responds better to a lower heat setting on a heat gun than a high heat setting, and basically you just have to be really careful, and it almost comes off as a powder. It takes an awful long time. You've got to be very patient, and one of the reasons I spent so long on this project is that I had several nightmares with basically the finish, well, the wood, the carina, wanting to stick to the finish more than it wanted to stick to itself. So I chunks coming out here, there and everywhere. And the other problem is that these guitars, both the Joe Bonamassa signature model included, have veneered front and back, which is absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with that from a constructional point of view, and it looks great. But the veneer tends to bubble under high heat, and the way to get it to stick back down is to get a flat iron on there, soften the glue, and then just clamp it down with a flat block and leave it for a couple of hours and hope for the best. With regard to the areas where the wood came away, what I've found is that it's better to basically just kind of, without trying to push wood back in or do patches or anything like that, just flood the area with super glue, and it basically, you can sand it flush with the surface, and when the finish is on it, these blemishes are almost invisible to the eye unless you know what you're looking for, and they look absolutely fine. So another thing I've done before I resprayed it was I've plugged all the holes for the screws and the tailpiece pins, because I've got a funny feeling I'm going to need to move things around to get everything aligned, especially with the vintage correct tailpiece that I'm going to put on here. So these are all plugged so that I can make fresh screw holes if necessary. Apart from that, yeah, I just tried to make the colour of the back of the neck match the body a little bit better. This is maple, this is carina, and basically they're always going to look a slightly different colour. Something else I did with this one was to drill out the the side dots, which are just kind of some weird paste stuff, and put in celluloid dots, which look a lot better. The headstock face presented some problems because I wanted to change the tuners, so we put some vintage Kluson style ones on there. This had die-cast kind of Grover tuners, which made the headstock really, really heavy. So I didn't want that. So these bushing holes are way too big. So in order to get around that, what I did was I plugged the holes with tapered dowel plugs and basically sanded them flush. Then what I was able to do was establish the center point of each one and just drill a narrow diameter pilot hole through those, and then I veneered over the top. I didn't bother getting holly. I think I used maple for this one. One complication was that the truss rod access, basically, when the original goes all the way down to the nut here, and doesn't really leave you any room to put like a vintage style truss rod cover on, which is what we wanted for it to look a little bit more 50s correct. So the way around that was to double up the thickness of the veneer in the area just in front of the nut here, so I've got a little bit of room for the truss rod cover screw to go in. I also extended the opening, so it made it easier to get a truss rod or Allen wrench in there. And with the pilot holes that went through the dowel plugs, that meant I could drill back through from the underside, so I could see exactly where each one of these dowel holes should be, and then I just kind of reamed them out so that they were the right diameter for the Kluson bushings. The tool I use to open these out is one of these reamers. I wouldn't try and drill them out. Just pop this in, and the idea is just to make it big enough so that the bushing can kind of press in with a minimum of pressure, finger pressure, and you know, it'll be perfectly tight enough. If you force them in, you always run the risk of splitting the headstock. So now I've kind of established the approximate size diameter that I need for this. I just put the reamer in, and I'll just put a piece of masking tape on it, so that'll give me an approximate depth. So if I pop this in like that, I can see that there's probably about 7 mil there that I need to drop in just to make it the right size for the bushing. So let's see if I can push this one in. There we are. It's clicked in nicely. So these tools aren't particularly expensive, so if you're in the habit of changing tuners, it might be worth investing in one of these. So I actually plugged the screw holes on the back of this headstock before I started refinishing it. So, you know, very rarely will the new screw holes line up with the old ones. So might as well just plug them and have a fresh start, basically. So all I'm going to do is place this ruler along the flat sides of these tuners, and that way I can just mark where the screw holes are going to go, and everything should line up really nicely. And there we go, one set of vintage style tuners. So I've shimmed the bridge up on a couple of pieces of wood, so I wanted to locate it properly, see how it lined up with the centres of the previous posts, and it's all absolutely fine. So it's playing really well. I've got even gaps between the outside strings and the outside of the fretboard. So I'm just going to locate where I want these holes to be. I'm going to drill them out, and I'm going to mount this bridge. the strings pulled this tailpiece out of whack a little bit, so I think I overestimated the ability of masking tape to hold it in position, but it's all strung up. The bridge is working great, the bridge posts are in. I'll try and balance this on my leg now and try and give you a sample of what it sounds like. Not 100% in tune, but to me that sounds really resonant, and I think it's going to be a really nice sounding guitar. It's funny how the kind of tone improves after you string it. If a guitar hasn't been strung up for a long time and you string it up, leave it overnight, and the sound just changes overnight. It sounded nice yesterday, but it sounds even better this morning. I've positioned everything on the guitar body now, and I think it's lined up just about as well as it can be. I've also drilled pilot holes for the nails and just tapped these just regular nails in just to hold the tailpiece in position roughly. The reason being I want to protect all those areas of the body that I don't want to dent and damage prior to inducing the lacquer checking. So I just got a handful of these screws here, and all I'm going to do is do this over and over again, just put in some really small little dents and nicks into the finish. The reason I do this is for the basically for the lacquer checking lines to form around the dents, and it kind of gives a really nice natural look, and the patterns that it forms are also, to my mind anyway, quite attractive and interesting. And then it's going to go in the freezer and hopefully come out looking absolutely great. So I've removed the body from the freezer, so to speak, and trying to give you a glimpse of this lacquer checking, because it has formed all over the body and it's done exactly what I'd hoped it would do, namely go side to side. Really cool patterns going everywhere. You can still see it's quite frosty, and there's a lot of condensation on the surface as well. I love this bit of the Relic'ing process because it's you know, really get a sense of how the guitar's going to look at the end of it. So it's formed all over, front and back. I've even got a little bit on the headstock as well. It's quite difficult to film, but this will all open up really nicely over the next few months and years, and look even more convincing. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take some of the gloss off the surface of this, and I'm going to use this quadruple O grade wire wool. I use a lot of this for various things actually. The only downside of having this on your workbench is there's always stray bits of wire that come off and stick to pickup magnets, so it's not too bad. You just use some tape and it'll stick to the tape, especially if it's duct tape, gaffer tape, and it'll stick to that more readily than it will to the pickup magnets, so you can just remove it like that. It's quite easy to do, but yeah, this stuff does get everywhere, but kind of knocked some of it back. I might just soften that effect a little bit with some micro mesh. Yeah, that's just taking out some of the more obvious scratches from the wire wool. And what I want to do now is take a little bit more of the whiteness off it and just give it a slightly off-white look. I don't know whether you'd call it parchment or whatever. It's just the kind of slightly yellowed look that old plastics get. I'm starting with a diluted solution of this stuff, which is leather dye, medium brown. This could be a bit too yellow, I think. Just going to wipe it off straight away and let it linger. Oh, that's good. I'm liking that. Wipe it on, take it off. Yeah, that's really nice. That's kind of taken on a slightly greenish yellow tinge. There we go. Yeah, that's looking an awful lot better to my eye. So it's the white on that side, and slightly tinted look on this side. This dreadful stuff is Morel's grain filler. I bought this maybe 20 years ago, and it was an absolutely terrible grain filler. Well, I found it, so it's all dried out, but I can just kind of wet it with a little bit of naphtha. I put it on a cotton bud, and it is fantastic for simulating the effect of dirt on the outside edge of things like pick guards, and it just sticks. You know, it just fills those gaps. It's good for aging, like control knobs and things like that. Does a really good job of just kind of simulating decades of dirt kind of getting into the edges there. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. It's kind of highlighted the chatter marks of the router. Let's give it a really gentle brush down with this Scotch pad so it doesn't look too OTT. Yeah, I'm real pleased with that. So I'm just going to do the outside edge of the pick guard as well, which takes a little longer, but I'm sure you've got the idea. These truss rod covers and pick guards and all kinds of stuff often come with these kind of peel off pieces of plastic. What I'll do is I'll take it off the front rather than transfer it onto the back, just to give that a little bit of protection, because what I'm going to do next is pop it into this bag. I've got a few screws in there. I just want to introduce some random scratches and dents into that. So I just kind of do this. Yeah, that's real good. Doesn't need an awful lot, just a little bit. And chucking around in a bag like that with a bunch of sharp screws just kind of keeps it all really random, and it's actually quite subtle, but I think it produces some quite good results, and it's not like you need to spend a fortune on all the bits and pieces you need to do it. So so there we go. So again, what I'm going to do with some of these is just kind of knock back this gloss just a little bit. Eagle-eyed viewers will probably notice that I got 4 knobs here and I only need 3, but I'll just pick the best 3 at the end of this and use those. So I'm going to do the same thing now with the truss rod cover and the pickup rings, and then maybe see if we can add a little bit of colour as well, much as we did before with the pick guard and the jack plate. What I want to try doing now is getting a little bit of kind of more of an amber colour on these knobs, and I'm going to use this leather stain neat. I'm just going to wipe it on. What I want to see is those numbers turning kind of amber. If you compare that with, well, they're already slightly amber to start with, but I think that looks an awful lot nicer. If you look through the kind of clear section at the top, you see it's got like an amber hue to it now. This one's still kind of clear looking. So I'm just going to leave that soak in. Do the next one. So here are the finished plastics. With a closer look, you can see those numbers on the knobs are really kind of ambered up now, and they're still shiny, but a lot of the sheen has been taken off them. Hopefully the rings are looking a little bit older. The pickguard and jack plate have kind of settled down to a nice kind of parchmenty colour now. Pleased with that. And you can see the dirt build up on the edges, courtesy of the nasty grain filler. And there's the truss rod cover. Looking quite old. And then there's the neck pickup ring. So there you go. A little bit of fun doing that. So I'm going to start relicing the tailpiece by wiping it down with some acetone. The reason for this is to basically remove any grease or oil or fingerprints that will show up after the metal has been treated and aged and won't look very good. By the way, if you can hear a noise like Darth Vader breathing in the background, that's because I'm wearing a respirator. I would normally do this out of doors, and I'm only doing it indoors because it just made it easier to film. So this is a sealable plastic container and some regular ammonia that you can get from any hardware store. And I'm just going to put a splash in the bottom. I'm also wearing goggles, gloves, and as I said, the respirator, because this stuff is really nasty and it's dangerous and can actually do you a lot of harm. So the idea isn't to put the metal into the ammonia, it's actually to steep it in the fumes of the ammonia. So I'm using these plastic spacers, balancing it on the top, and those are the nails going in as well, which will fix it to the body. And I'm going to seal this down now tightly as possible and set it off to one side. And this is after about 10 minutes, so the process is very quick and very effective. It's an old antiques restorer's trick actually, so it's good to kind of take tips from other disciplines. I'm fishing these nails out with long nose pliers, so I don't want to get in there with my fingers. Working as quickly and as carefully as possible. Okay, so let's take a look. I think that's looking an awful lot better. I mean, this really makes or breaks one of these Flying V projects, I think, because once you get the tailpiece looking right, makes the whole guitar look a whole lot better, much more convincing. And with the nails in, I think this is going to look pretty good. I looked high and low and I couldn't actually find any pictures of original 58 Flying V wiring harnesses, so I'm just going to have to, I mean, yeah, you can find the circuit diagram, which is absolutely fine, but I'm just going to wing it with this one, and I'm going to recycle this three-way switch as well. It works absolutely fine. Might not look entirely the part, but I think it'll be pretty good. Definitely upgrading the pots makes sense, but upgrading a perfectly functioning switch, maybe not so much so. wiring all done. Get some pickups in here and start putting this together. I made a decision about these dots. I really didn't like these kind of pasty looking ones, and I decided I'm going to swap them out for some celluloid dots because I think they'll look a little bit nicer. You can see these two I've done already, and I've done all the ones further up. So what I'm doing is I'm drilling down through the center of these dots using like a 2mm bit. Try and be accurate, try and find the center. It's not too critical, but well, this is just a pilot hole really for a 5mm drill bit. These are 6mm dots, by the way, so I'm going to use a 5mm drill bit, which is basically a brad point bit. And I'm going to try and drill these guys out. Now, sometimes you get kind of halfway down. You want to avoid the edges, obviously. Sometimes you get about halfway down and the dot just pops out really cleanly. Other times you're left with a little bit of a ring of this kind of pasty stuff that they use, and you kind of need to just prise it out. Okay, I'm seeing rosewood at the bottom of that now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in. I've got a kind of ring of rosewood all around. Sorry, a ring of this dot stuff all the way around the outside. So I'm going to come in with this tiny chisel at the bottom, not the top, and I'm just going to prise it, and it's popped out pretty clean. It was left with a little bit of debris in the bottom, so I'm going to flood this with super glue. Cryo glue, as I think the professionals call it. Use a small hammer. And that's in real nice. Okay, those are the last ones in. So it's very unlikely that you'll get them like completely smooth with the top. So I'm just using a scraper blade. I'll just do this one first. Celluloid's pretty soft. Okay, that's super smooth now. I'll just do the same with the others. So they're all in. The next thing is just to kind of smooth it off a little bit, and for that I'm going to use some wire wool. This is some quadruple 0 grade wire wool. Kind of polishes up the celluloid as well, which kind of brings out that kind of nice grain in it, which was just too absent with this stuff that Epiphone use. What I'm going to do now is just stain them up a little bit. Again, I'm going with that kind of leather stain, medium brown. Okay, it seems to kind of highlight the grain very nicely. And now the last thing to do is a little bit of fretboard oil, and this just evens out the colour of the fretboard where it's been scratched a little bit. Scraper leaves it super smooth, so you don't need to worry about lines or anything like that. If you do it well, it's absolutely fine. So it took about half an hour, but it's time well spent, I think. So the hardware aging, I'm not going over the top with it, I'm just kind of de-emphasising the gold really, and the way to do it is to use this, well I use this Brasso a brass cleaner. It's just a kind of pad, and I just find that if you just rub the gold plating with it, it comes off really quite quickly. So that's the area where I've treated, and that's what it looked like originally. So don't forget to do the shafts as well. Just kind of subtle, really. And I've done it with the bushings. I've taken the gold off the strap buttons screws. The thing is, when you're rubbing the gold plating with the brass, so you can't get deep inside, so you end up with like tons of gold, really shiny gold in the kind of crosshead recess. But and it kind of looks odd. So what I've been doing recently is using this stuff, which is birchwood aluminium black, which is great. I just kind of paint it on with a tiny paintbrush and just get it inside, and it just darkens up the recess. Same again with the actual tuner screws. Just kind of darkens it up on the inside and looks fine. Some parts are easier to relic than others. I mean, these Switchcraft output jacks really, the plating is really quite good, and it doesn't rub off easily at all. But the Clues and tuners are really easy to do. So there you go. I'm just going to pop these back on the guitar. Oh, the other thing I did was I took a little bit of the quadruple O grade wire wool, just kind of softened the shine on these buttons a little bit, and then hit it with some of that medium brown leather dye, and the results are pretty much instantaneous. It's still got a bit of shine to it. But yeah, they kind of look older. I was looking at a lot of vintage 58 Flying V videos on YouTube, and the tuners, when they're still original, tend to look quite shiny and still quite gold. So I didn't want to go over the top with the Relic'ing on these, and I'm sure with regular use the aging will just continue. So you might have noticed this blue sticky piece of tape underneath the plate, and this is to remind myself before assembling the guitar to make the most important connection of all, which is the ground wire. And it's important mostly because if I forget to do it, I'm in a world of trouble, because the plate is actually nailed on, and getting it back off to put the ground connection in would not be a lot of fun. So basically what I'm going to do is just feed this through here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of masking tape in the control cavity just to kind of hold this in position so it doesn't slide anywhere. I'm just going to scuff this little bit up just to expose some fresh brass and make sure that I get as good a mechanical contact as possible. That should hopefully help. Now what I did was I actually pre-drilled these holes for the fixing nails, because I think these are brass. They're certainly non-magnetic. These are the ones from Crazy Parts. I've aged them up a little bit, and yeah, I didn't want to risk them bending or twisting or anything nasty happening to them. What I'm going to do is just pull these nails out if I can, and I'm going to put the proper nails in, but I'm not going to tap them all the way down. I'm going to tap them most of the way home, but leave a little bit of wiggle room on the plate, just so that I can make some final adjustments to the positioning, making sure this is flat, nothing underneath it. We're all safe. Okay, that's going to look super nice, I think. Okay, so everything's in there kind of loosely, and what I'm going to do is just tape everything down into position, get some strings in there, and bring it up to a certain amount of tension, and then just going to carefully align everything. And once I'm happy with the positioning, I will again tape everything down, and then I'll just drill all the pilot holes for the screws, and it'll all be ready to fix down. I'm going to drill some holes into the body. Remember what I said, I actually plugged all these holes right at the beginning of this project before I even sprayed it. So that kind of gives me a reference line for the pick guard. And what I'm going to try and do is also ensure that the bridge pickup is kind of positioned where I want it to be, and then use that to determine the position of the pick guard. So I'm looking to get the lines kind of lined up under this side of the pickup rings, but also down the lengths as well. It's maybe a little bit off there. Yeah, that's okay. I've got a bit of a gap on this side. It's fairly close on this side. Gaps underneath the pickups, which I'm kind of happy about. And I can get it to line up with the tailpiece really nicely. So I'm just going to position this pick guard, again using the masking tape, and just make sure it's square with the other pickup before I commit to drilling some holes. Feels quite strange to be working on a more modern guitar like this, because often with vintage guitars these screws barely bite at all unless you plug the holes. Always try and resist the temptation to over tighten pickguard screws, because it's easy to crack them, particularly on, you see it on the kind of horn section on Stratocaster pickguards, and also the pointed end of Flying V pickguards, funnily enough. Well, it's been a long video, but it was a long project, and if you've made it this far, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and thanks very much for watching. You might remember I said I was never going to do another Epiphone project, and I did get talked into it, but not by Chris Buck, as the title might suggest, but actually by his dad Dory, who'd become a good friend of mine and sadly didn't live to see the completion of this project, and I hope he would have been pleased with the way it turned out. I learned a few things along the way, as I always do. If you've got to pay somebody to do this job for you and you want a 50 style Flying V, I don't think an Epiphone is probably the most cost-effective way to do it. Personally, I'd be looking at Precision guitar kits, and their Flying V might be worth checking out. The other thing was that the Crazy Parts tailpiece is a really nice piece of kit, but the string holes don't line up with the Epiphone string holes, probably because the Crazy Parts one is vintage correct and the Epiphone isn't. Another alternative, and something that might be more cost effective, could be getting a metal fabricator to make you a tailpiece out of sheet brass, with the outside dimensions correct for 1950s size and shape, but then use the Epiphone tailpiece as a guide for drilling string holes that will line up properly. I haven't really mentioned the pickups, but suffice to say I made them myself. Chris has been using my humbuckers in his Les Paul for a while now, and it was my lockdown project basically to stop myself going crazy. I decided I would learn how to make pickups, and I concentrated on PAFs and P90s. I'm in a fortunate position that I have friends who own bursts and gold tops from the 1950s, and are even actually prepared to let me borrow them and analyse them and use them for guidance when I'm trying to develop pickups and learn how to do these things. So if you like what you hear in the demos at the end, and you feel you'd be interested in owning a set of my pickups, feel free to contact me via my website, which is huwpriceguitar.com. Anyway, that's enough of me blathering on. You're probably wondering when Chris Buck is going to show his face, and the answer is no. We were lucky enough to get some footage of him seeing the guitar for the first time, and he also kindly recorded a couple of demo jams for us as well. So hope you enjoy the sounds, hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you all again soon. Tabo.
I know, it's exciting, isn't it? Look at that.
Oh, Yanto, shh.
Oh wow. It looks light.
It's light as a feather, isn't
I
it?
can't remember it being that light. Polyurethane.
It's polyurethane, yeah, it's lost
yeah,
about 2 pounds or something.
Oh man. That is incredible.
If you catch the light right, you can see all the lacquer checking on it.
Yeah.
If you kind of look down on it.
Yeah. Oh man. That is killer. Oh, fair play. Oh, I love that. Love that. That's an awesome touch. Oh, mate. Absolutely superb. Oh, it looks so legit. It looks really legit. The only one I've ever played was that one that kind of had a bit of work done to it.
Yeah.
To be diplomatic and Garden Holgate, but that, it's just, oh, mate. Absolutely, genuinely, that's incredible. Thank you. Chuffed the bits for that. What's it sound like?
Well, have a listen.
Oh mate, that's absolutely unreal.
The problem is like chunks of wood coming out.
Right, okay.
So
what,
down there,
get the poly off.
can you see it?
Not really.
No, really good. That's the answer I was looking for. That is the correct answer.
So what? No, where am I looking?
Just down there.
Alright, it just looks like grain.
Yeah, and there's a few other chunks out the top as well. Oh, there's one there.
Right.
But it's...
Oh, you would just think that was part of the grain.
Cool.
Oh, amazing. Mate, that's absolutely unreal. Thank you so much.
Great stuff. My pleasure.
Absolutely chuffed the bits.
In the end.
Let's plug it in there.
Yeah, cool.
Bloody brilliant. No, thank you, mate. Genuinely, that's awesome.